You're listening to the Board Game Snobs podcast, a ridiculous podcast with ridiculous hosts that discuss ridiculous things. And any mention of board games is purely coincidental. And so, without further ado, and with a heavy dollop of shame and embarrassment on my part, I give you the Board Game Snobs.
I should do the accent, shouldn't I? Hello, and welcome to the Board Game Snobs. My name's Gabby, whatever my last name is, Marengo, and with me is Jerry Baker. Hello.
No, you got it wrong. I'm Gabby, obviously. I'm the one who said, and go. I'm Gabby. I've got the notebook. I'm holding a notebook in my hand. I'm the nice, kind, sensitive one.
I'm the nice,
mean,
kind, sensitive one.
Brutish oaf. You are just a fountain of anger and hostility, like Jerry Baker.
No, but I'm the fat one and you're the short one. So you have to be Jerry. I don't want to be Jerry. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be Jerry. Can we do a Jerry? Can we do one where you're Gabby and I'm primary guest host Dan Hughes co-hosting? What about that? Would that be acceptable?
I guess, but I feel like, the whole reason that we're doing this podcast, Dan, and I'm Mike DeLisio from the Sporadically Board podcast, multiple times nominated for BGG, Best Podcast, and will never be again. The real reason why we're doing this is that we knew that both of the snobs were shirking their duties. Dan, I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. They were shirking their duties. Jerry is off cavorting with Enrique in a corn maze somewhere. Gabi is frolicking with jellyfish in some beach, I'm assuming on the Gulf Coast of Texas. And you and I are here slaving away so that the Board Game Snobs listeners don't miss out on their weekly podcast.
No, because they've got a very short attention span of the Board Game Snobs listeners. You need to keep dangling shiny things in front of them. Otherwise, they lose focus. Not like our listeners who are kind of... It's a bit like the difference between a clickbait online article and kind of long-form professional journalism. That's the difference between the two podcasts.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting analogy, Dan. I'd argue with you if I could, but I think that is spot on.
I think it's pretty accurate. Yeah. So we're here. Garby put a tearful message out on Facebook.
He did.
It's saying that he couldn't possibly record because he was on holiday and all this kind of stuff, and they weren't going to do a emergency episode because we all know what an emergency flipping one from the vaults is. Goodness sake.
Yeah, right. It's a best of. They wanted to put out a best of, but they listened back to all their episodes and none fit the bill.
None fit the bill. Anything, could they, Mike? No. So we volunteered. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that we've got something to shill either, Mike, has it?
Not at all. Hey, you know what Gabi's on right now? He's on vacation. You know what I'm on? My lunch break, Dan. I'm on my lunch break. That's the only way I can record this thing because I'm working. But I'm using my valuable time on my lunch break to record this podcast. It has nothing to do with the brand new game that you and I have currently on Kickstarter called I Made You a Mixtape, Dan. It has nothing to do with that.
I'd forgotten all about that game. I wonder how it's funded. Look, it's funded and definitely going to become a thing. So yeah, you should check that out if you can. It's quite short as well, so it will work well for the audience of this podcast. Again, the short attention span.
Short attention span. So, yes, it's a very quick playing game, and it's a game that at least one half of the Board Game Snobs podcast has played.
And he liked it. At least he told us he liked it.
He said he liked it, and he also, Dan, has a quote on our Kickstarter page. So
it was He gave me multiple quotes, Mike. He was very pleased to be quotable on a Kickstarter page.
Yeah.
And he gave me multiple quotes, all of which had increasingly bad musical puns on them. So I chose the least onerous, really.
Okay. So if you do check out that page, and we hope you do, make note of Jerry's contribution to the page. It's
everyone else has got a photo on there. We've not got a photo of Jerry, and there's I wouldn't say there's any reason for that at all, other than
Every time, Dan, I see Jerry on camera, like it's not a photo, but it's a video, I see from his nose up. He's always sitting like in a I don't know what he's sitting in, but he's got his screen so that it's nose high. I can see his nose and the top of his head.
It's like, did you used to, I don't know if it's a universal thing or just a British thing, there was, in the kind of 80s and 90s, there was a kind of, I think they used to call him Chad, a graffiti thing of someone who just poking their nose over the top of a brick wall, was it?
And finger with knuckles. You know what it's
little
called?
Fingers on it. I can't. Was it Chad, something like that?
No, I can tell you what it was in the States. It was Kilroy. It would say Kilroy
was here.
Kilroy was here. Yes.
Yeah, what's that about?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that in ages.
I wonder. I bet it's some kind of horrific racist
I hope
meme
not.
Or something like that.
Let's hope not. I think it was on like T-shirts and stuff. But you know what?
Yeah.
Being the 70s, that may not have made a difference. It may still have been problematic. But let's hope
it could have been
not.
like Fido Dido, who turned out to be a Nazi, didn't he? So
I have no idea who you're talking about. But I can assure you that I'm sure that Gabi and Jerry appreciate any mention of Nazism on their podcast. But I know nothing of it.
They love a bit of Nazism, does Jack Harriet?
I think we're going to end that right on this thread. I think we're done with that topic. Let's move on to another topic. And any other topic, quite honestly, Dan. It could be anything.
It suddenly came to me that we can say. Well, I suppose no. We still have to be responsible for what we say. I suppose
we do still, even though it's on the Board Game Snobs feed. I think we still have to be personally responsible for anything that we say here. It would have been a great loophole, Dan. That would have been a fantastic loophole where we could have just said anything.
Not that I was going to go on some kind of rant.
I understand that. I'm just, look, I'm trying to cultivate this stream and keep it as family friendly because, look, if there's anything that the Board Game Snobs are, it's family friendly since one or both of their hosts are quite generally way in the bag while they're recording. So, again, lunch break, completely sober, Dan. I want to reiterate that. So,
which is unusual for you on a lunch break, isn't it?
Liquid lunch, baby.
Yeah.
No, the only liquid I'm having on this lunch is a delicious
Mike,
Brita filtered water. Yes, what, Dan?
This is interesting, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but you're on a lunch break, which indicates somehow that you were working before this lunch break.
I was indeed.
Give us a peek in the world of a professional board game reviewer.
Oh.
What were you doing before you abandoned your duties to podcast?
I abandoned no duties. I took a lunch break, Dan, and I'm hoping that we can end this in time that I can actually eat something.
I'm not sure Tom would agree with that, but okay, yeah.
I get a lunch break, Dan.
Okay.
I was working on one of Tom's 40. It's X reviews and Y minutes is what I have it titled, and because it changes every time. What it is, it's a series that he does where he takes a huge group of games and he just talks about them each for a short period of time. I run a timer up there while he's talking about it, and then we find out how long it took him to get through this block. So this particular one was 47 games in 15 minutes. Now,
wow.
For many of these games, there's going to be a proper review, or there already has been, but he's just kind of, putting them through. But he has this huge queue of games. And so he feels like, I want to say something about each of them, even if it's only been a first or second impression, and then maybe I'll do a proper review after. Just because we get so many games. And, this at least is saying something about a game, even if it may not get back to a larger review later.
Now then, do you play games on the clock that you're going to review, or do you have to play games off the clock? And then review them on the clock?
Well, I It's a tricky question. Do I have to? No, there's no requirement that I play games off the clock. However, I feel like because of the amount of work that I have to do in a typical week, that I tend to, and also, thankfully, I still love playing games.
Yeah.
Now, could I do my job and not play games off the clock? Yes, I could, but I wouldn't be able to be as part of as many reviews. And so, specifically for the group reviews, I like to try to coordinate. And sometimes we'll, as a team, talk about it, or even just Tom and I. Hey, what have you been playing recently? What are you looking to play? And we'll kind of do that so that if there's a way to coordinate, we'll do that so that maybe we can be in some group games, group reviews together. And so I do play some games on the clock, but that typically is for something that is specifically scheduled, right? Yeah. Hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to be reviewing this. Do you want to be a part of it? Yes, let me play it a couple of times. So I'll play it 2-3 times. Maybe they were on the clock, maybe they were off, maybe it was a combination of both.
Excellent. Well, there we go. That's a valuable insight into the Dice Tower and much more interesting content than you're used to on this podcast stream. Informative and interesting. The Snobs don't usually do either of those two things.
No. I figured that let's give the Board Game Snobs audience, and we've already probably figured that there's a huge Venn diagram, so it may only be illuminating for a small portion of the Snobs podcast, but I wanted to kind of show them what they were missing, when you and I came on, just kind of give them a glimpse of what a board game podcast could be, right? Mm-hmm.
For people who cared about it and didn't go on holiday or work when they're meant to be podcasting and so, because there's one thing about our podcast, Mike, it's that people know it's regular. It's good, consistent in quality.
100%.
And it is the foremost of our mind at every minute of the day, Mike. That's the thing that people can rest assured that the Sporadically Board podcast, it's never last minute as an afterthought.
No. We never ask our guests 10 minutes before we go live if they want to record.
We would never do that.
No.
Never.
This is always on the forefront of our attention. And I wake up a lot of times. I haven't really mentioned this before, Dan, but I feel like this is a safe space here at the Board Game Snobs feed.
Well, because no one's listening. That's why. Yeah.
I oftentimes will wake up screaming in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, just yelling, "Sporadically Board!" Because I've been thinking of the next episode and all of the things I want to cover.
It's like when you play too much Tetris, Mike. It's a well-known mental phenomenon that if you play lots and lots of Tetris, you start to dream Tetris. Has that ever happened to you? I think we had this conversation before.
I don't know that I've ever dreamed Tetris, but I have dreamed other games frequently.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, so it's the same kind of thing. We're dreaming it because we're thinking about it all the time.
If I had a quarter for every time I dreamt of Naked Twister, Dan, I'd never have to work another day in my life.
You like to be the mat, though, don't you? In that game, that's the
Yeah, and it's always a new game because the spots always end up in different places, Dan. So
well, they do by the end of the game.
Endless replayability with that one.
Exactly. So what do they normally talk about on a? But I must admit, I've got this special app that filters out podcasts where only shows me bits where they talk about me.
That's a pretty good app.
It's a pretty good app, yeah. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't get one for you because basically it'd be blank, but for me it comes quite a lot of content through.
Let me ask you this. We've established that Jerry and Enrique, I think Bubba was part of it, went to a corn maze. Now, are corn mazes a thing in the UK? First question.
Now, what do you define? What is corn? Is it the?
It's a vegetable, a starchy vegetable, Dan.
Yeah, because corn over here. Yeah, well, that's sweet corn we call that.
Okay.
Whereas corn is a wheat-like maize type thing.
Yeah.
In the UK.
Yeah. They're tall. They're usually corn cobs are above your head, when they're
Yeah,
close
I know what
to
corn cob is.
harvest.
I know. Anyway, whatever. I can't be bothered. Do you know what? That's our thing on our podcast. We won't be talking about that. The difference.
Do you have corn mazes in the UK? It couldn't have been a simpler question. It literally is yes or no.
But we call them mazes.
M-A-I-Z-E. Cute. Okay. I'm sure we do that here too, actually.
Yes.
But, so they are a thing there. Have you been to one? And if so, how many?
I have been to one. I would say I go to one nearly every year, although it didn't this year or last year. So I would say about 7 different ones, but all in the same location, but different setups, because obviously they make a new one each year.
Now, I live in the state of Indiana, and one of its defining features is corn growing, right? There actually was a little amusement park here. It's no longer open, where their catchphrase was, "There's more than corn in Indiana."
Why on earth would that amusement park close down? It's baffling.
It's called Indiana Beach. You know what they don't have here in Indiana? Beaches. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
That's why it closed. So, corn is everywhere.
There was a beach in Manchester, wasn't there? Do you remember? There was a beach in Manchester in a shopping centre. It was a big sandpit, Mike. Is what
okay. Yes, I do remember the sand pit in Manchester. Actually, there were many sand pits in Manchester.
Salac pits.
I live in Indiana. I've only been to one corn maze in my life.
Oh, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I thought it was cool, but
it's cool for the first 10 minutes until you realise you're lost, and then it's frustrating.
Well, it's not terribly frustrating, because the one little hidden secret, Dan, I'm going to share this with you, is that if you're stuck in a corn maze, you can just walk forward. You'll eventually find something.
No, because you might damage it. No self-respecting English person would do that. They'd politely walk around the maze, not wanting to cause anyone any trouble until they died of exhaustion.
Well, I could tell you the difference then between UK and Americans is that I always enter, the one time I've been in one, I always enter a corn maze with a machete shoved in the back of my pants. Because if I get to any dead ends, I'm macheteing my way out.
Yeah, well, it's the American dream. That's the American way, isn't it?
So,
I'm surprised it wasn't some kind of AK rifle or whatever it is to mow it down.
State laws differ. So, Jerry, obviously went to this corn maze. I wonder, is this a frequent thing that he and Enrique do? Like, do they go on corn maze tours around?
As far as I can tell, Jerry and Enrique do daddy-son activities almost all the time.
Really?
They go bowling with each other.
Okay.
There's videos of him with Jerry with Enrique on his shoulders.
Okay.
Watching the kind of the Bluey. Is Bluey a thing in the American?
Yeah, Bluey's a thing here. Yeah.
The Bluey live shows with Enrique on Jerry's shoulders, so he can see a bit better. I mean, to be fair, he's only 3 more inches taller than he would have been if he wasn't on anyone's shoulders. But yeah. I don't know. I don't seem to stalk them as much as you appear to be stalking them.
It's not stalking, Dan. It's like they post on Facebook 20 times a day, right? Yeah, they don't even have a game on Kickstarter currently called "I Made You a Mixtape" that would give them, the right to post an obnoxious amount on Facebook. But they do, and so I live vicariously through the eyes of Gabi and Jerry, and I suppose Enrique as well. Although Enrique is an elusive individual. He's very
not
elusive.
Been on the podcast very often recently, has he?
Yeah.
He's been absent. I've noticed that.
He's been relegated. He's been relegated to the minor leagues. That's a baseball or American sports reference, Dan. Although I think it works in soccer as well.
We've got minor leagues in soccer. If you just check where Huddersfield Town are, that's usually the minorest of the leagues. If you want to have a look at that, that's fine.
Yeah, Dan, that brings up an interesting point. You are on record. You are on record as being just this huge champion of Huddersfield. You've written these letters from Huddersfield to different game designers. You are on this quest to put Huddersfield in games. Our game, currently on Kickstarter, I Made You a Mixtape, has a track card, because it's a game about making a mixtape, go figure from the title. And one of the cards you demanded be put in the game was the Iron Maiden rare track, sheriff of Huddersfield. So you're such a big fan of Huddersfield, but you know what you don't rep? You don't rep Huddersfield Football Club. You know who does? Your son, Evan. So who's the true fan of Huddersfield? If you were a fan of Huddersfield, I'd be seeing you wear Huddersfield gear all over the place. I'd be seeing you wear those scarves that they wear. How can you call yourself a champion of Huddersfield, Dan?
Do you know who else is a champion of Huddersfield Football Club?
Who?
Sir Patrick Stewart. He's there quite a lot, apparently.
Is that right?
It is, right? He's a big Huddersfield Town supporter. Probably not so much anymore because he doesn't live in the area and he's quite elderly, so I imagine travelling. Yeah. But he used to come to games all the time. I hate football, Mike. I hate all sports. Sports are the anathema to me. I have my mother is a very big sports woman.
Okay,
I may have mentioned this before, but she was recently offered to play for the under-18s England squad for tennis.
Yes,
and she's always been kind of borderline obsessed with tennis. And my sister got a scholarship to an American university for tennis, no less.
Wow!
So she was at is it Atlanta University? Anyway, the University of Atlanta. Anyway, somewhere around that area.
I'm not familiar with either of those schools, but that might be a thing.
Milledgeville was where the
university was?
actual university was. So it was a state. I don't whatever.
It could have been Georgia State, or it could have been the University of Georgia. I mean, that's a huge school.
Yeah, could have been. I don't know. To be honest, it was sport. I paid no attention. She wasn't in the country for about 5 years, and then she came back.
Gotcha. Okay,
that's the only
checks out.
Yeah. So I hate sport. I hate it. And to be honest, if I'm honest with you, Mike, and I can say this because this is a safe space because no one's listening, as we've already established, Huddersfield, bits of it are pretty nasty at the moment.
I seem to remember going to an awesome ice cream place where they had the little syrup in the center.
Yeah. Dixon's ice cream. That's good.
Yeah, but it's not in the best part of town, Dan.
No, Huddersfield is a dying town with lots of urban deprivation, and we're not doing so well. The town centre is full of vape shops and charity shops, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And we've just banned the UK government's just banned disposable vapes, so I don't know what those vape shops are going to do.
Oh,
so
wow!
So there's going to be no shops.
I like how you whispered through a good part of that, like you were saying something that people in the downtown center are going to hear.
Yeah. But I live in a village which is lovely and beautiful and nice, so I don't really live in Huddersfield. I live in a suburb of Huddersfield.
So there's a town of Huddersfield, and you are in a village of.
Well, it's under Kirklees Council. So
Kirklees,
which is a council that covers Huddersfield and a number of other towns and villages. So, yes.
It's a whole new thing. Dan, you were mentioning tennis, and that sparked something to my mind. Is the UK experiencing this incredible phenomenon of an older sport that no one had ever heard of, and now it is becoming this huge thing in the United States?
Well, apparently, yes, a little bit, but because I don't pay any attention to sport, I don't know. But I know what you're talking about, because the Snobs are obsessed with it. It's pickleball, isn't it?
Ah, yes, it is pickleball. I did not even know the Snobs were obsessed with it.
Well, Jerry was, because he was trying to encourage Evan to have a game of pickleball with him
at the retreat.
At the Dice Tower retreat. And the most recent episode I listened to, Jerry was talking about playing pickleball with Garby.
Okay.
So not that I'm aware of, but my mother talks about pickleball going on at her tennis club. So it must be at least we must be somewhere within the craze, but maybe not just not fully embedded in the craze, maybe.
Dan, when I was a teacher in high school, I was a high school teacher for almost 20 years. What I experienced was a number of different little events over the years that I taught, where there would be, like, literally overnight something that all of the students were aware of, and they were talking about it. And I had never heard of this thing before, right? Suddenly it was a thing, and every kid was talking about it. And I'm like, when did this happen? right? It's like
Skibbity toilets.
It's something, nobody was talking about it yesterday, and now everybody's talking about this thing, right? That happened a number of times, and I wish I could think of specific examples, but it was something like, I don't know, I remember like flat bracelets all of a sudden was a thing, or, you know what I mean? It's like no one had a slap bracelet, and then the next day, everyone had a slap bracelet, something like that.
Yeah.
That to me has been pickleball in the United States. It's like, I heard nothing about it. Apparently it's been a sport since the 70s. I heard nothing about it, and then all of a sudden, everywhere I turned, there were pickleball courts and people talking about pickleball. I don't get it.
Do you know what the next big thing is going to be, though, Mike?
I do not know.
It's I Made You a Mixtape. It's a card game.
Oh! Yes. It's going to take the world by storm.
I think they're going to be playing it in the children's playgrounds. They're going to be saying, "Oh, look at this card that says Bop," and then they'll be going to Spotify and downloading Bop and kind of rediscovering the joys of Hanson.
Yes, yes, that's true. And I don't know, since we're doing this podcast on behalf of the Board Game Snobs, my assumption is that we're just going to give this podcast over to Gabi, and he's going to upload it without listening to it. I mean, that's kind of the hope. But the only problem is that will he put the Kickstarter link in the comments below? We'll have to find out. If not, we'll make sure it's up there in the comments, because we would love for you to take a look at our Kickstarter page. It's a very reasonable game, Dan. $25, €19 or pounds.
Pounds.
€20.
€23.
€23. I don't know. The euro's made up. I have no idea how much it is. But
we're not going down that controversial route. We've already swerved.
We're very happy with the game. We're excited about it. It's already funded, and we're so appreciative of the people that have so far. And if you think you would be interested in a game that plays quickly, a lot of simultaneous play going on, so no downtime to speak of, a good amount of decisions with very few rules, we would really appreciate if you take a look, you snobs, you.
That was very sincere. Well done. But the thing I'm worried about with this podcast is, Mike, they have like an intro. Welcome to the Board Game Snobs, read by Ben Maddox. How are we going to do that?
Well, I mean, again, my guess is Gabi's going to slap that in the air.
Well, he won't be, because he's on holiday, isn't he? He's on holiday.
Well, but he's got to upload it, so presumably he has a computer with him.
Oh, maybe.
A waterproof computer that he's working on in the middle of the water.
Maybe we didn't think this through.
We did not think this through, Dan.
Maybe we should have done this.
Let's get a hold of Ben right now. Let's link him into this call, and we'll get him to do a custom intro and outro for this. Dan is actually trying to do it, aren't you?
I reckon me? No.
Oh, I thought you were trying to message Ben.
No. No, because you have to start his recording and it'd be a nightmare. I'm not editing this. I can tell you that much. I reckon I could do it, is what I'm saying. But I can't remember what he says. He says, "Welcome to the Board Game Snobs." Does he? Something like that?
He says, "Welcome to the Board Game Snobs podcast."
No.
Yeah, I can't remember. He says something like, I have the unfortunate task of introducing this.
He says it very verbosely. Like
he does.
He thinks he's all that, doesn't he, that Ben Maddox?
Ben, he's an iconoclast, Dan. He is an iconoclast. He insists on wearing track uniforms at all time. I've never seen Ben outside of some kind of track uniform that he's wearing.
He thinks he's at a track meet, doesn't he?
He's at a track meet. He's got the big can earphones on. He looks like he just stepped out of an album from the Streets. That's an obscure UK
The interesting thing about Ben is he's got two looks.
Yeah.
One look is suave.
Yes.
And the other look is murder hobo.
I'm going to be that. It's Halloween, Dan. We have not mentioned that. I know it's not as much of a thing in the UK, but it's Halloween.
It was invented in Scotland, though,
I'm going to go as a murder hobo this year. That's fantastic. I just need to call Ben and ask for the specifications.
Ask for tips. Well, Mike, we come to a half an hour. That's usually when they sign off, and we've got stuff to do. We're doing a Reddit Ask Me Anything thing.
Which by the time you hear this, we'll be done.
We'll be done. So don't bother coming. You can come and ask some questions, and we'll probably still answer them.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening to the Board Game Snobs. My name's been Jerry. Was I Jerry?
Yeah, you're definitely Jerry, and I've been Gobby.
Yeah. And so join us again next week when where we're certainly not wizards.
We're not wizards, and I'm the purple tank, and
No, we don't listen to any other podcasts.
And you're so very wrong about the Snobs.
I've never listened to an episode of that. Is that bad?
No, it was good. They're good. I listened to some of them earlier, actually. I don't listen to a lot of them.
No, I wouldn't say, are they bad? I said, is it bad that I've never listened to an episode of it?
No, it's out there. Put it on record. Dan Thinks It's So Very Wrong About Games is a bad podcast. I've got a terrible frog in my throat. And
on that bombshell, we're going to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tolerating this episode of the Board Game Snobs. Stay classy.